the best way to motivate you is through a ton of pain too. And the reason why I say that is because like the way I've always been motivated is like when my backs are absolutely against the wall. I've probably gone too far into the deep end or like in the red. Like I shouldn't have let it ever get there. And maybe I have to get even a couple more inches in there for me to really be like, okay, and then I kick it into gear. Well, you're not normal. I'll put it that way. You're not the conventional person I've ever met.
You're not the first person to tell me that.
Yeah.
Some people have put it in other words. I'm learning how to catch a side thought and just shove it in a bag and kill it.
Wow. Anybody that's heard this for the first time, I do a tiny house festival every year. It's a full showcase of tiny houses, van conversions, school bus conversions, and any type of like simple living structures, along with vendors, food trucks, live music. We even have a lot of panel discussions that we're bringing back this year again.
If you like and subscribe on this, tell us down below in the comments that you subscribed on this and we'll get back to you. We'll reply to you. Hit that button, we'll hit your button. We'll smack that button.
Hell yeah. If there's anything that's like a magic pill to like bring together this polarized country, for whatever reason, tiny houses do it because both conservatives and liberals love tiny houses.
I think Mark is doing a real good job at repairing his reputation.
I never thought it was that bad in the first place.
I never did,
think people try
but
to
I know a lot
it.
of people have, and I think he's been going on a campaign over the last like couple of years to restore his reputation. Because when I was watching that, I was like, either I'm a super nerd or I think Mark Zuckerberg's cool.
I think he's awesome.
Yeah, me too.
I think the best thing he could have done was going to Rogan and Lex. I mean, those two right there.
He went on Rogan, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember. I don't know. I think I seen it. I probably did.
Yeah. I mean, all the big people have been on Rogan. Even Dorsey's been on it way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
There've been a lot of good people on there.
But,
I was like back in the heat of things with Dorsey.
He's technically, if you look back at his track record, he's always been kind of a cool guy, you know? Like, he's just been kind of nerdy and, like, awkward on camera sometimes.
He's a little pale.
Yeah, a little pale, and has always been a little awkward on camera. But if you think about it, they were, like, throwing frat parties, like beer pong, while building Facebook, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Hackathons.
Yeah, and those are cool, yeah. But,
That's what they do.
I think he is the king of the nerds.
No. I don't know. Elon's got that title.
I think Elon has escaped nerd velocity.
Nerdville? He probably has.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've actually never looked at Elon as a nerd, even though he is super nerdy. He's high nerd.
He's high quality. He's top tier nerd.
Top tier nerd.
For sure. Are we on right now?
Yeah, we're going.
Are we doing this,
that's
Edgar?
recording over there? Okay, we got Edgar over here on the third camera.
Yes. So we're live, aren't we?
We are live.
The mic's hot.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, let's talk about that real quick. Let's talk a little bit about this. If anybody has not seen it so far, I think it's really cool. We're just talking about the Mark Zuckerberg interview with Lex Fridman. If you haven't watched Lex, what is it called? Lex Fridman podcast was the name of it again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's changed names over the years, right?
Just once.
Yeah, okay. So what was it and then what is it now?
It was AI podcast.
That's right.
It was the artificial intelligence podcast before artificial intelligence was cool.
Yeah.
And then a couple years ago, Joe Rogan convinced him to rebrand it to his name.
Yeah. Which is fair.
Yeah, and we can keep that first part in. Like, we don't even have to edit it. So,
that's fine with me.
We might. I mean, we haven't done an intro yet either, so
we're rolling with it.
Yeah,
we're having a conversation today. That's completely fine. I think that just the evolution of Lex Fridman's been pretty cool to see because I remember when you and I first got into podcasting together, I didn't really like Lex Fridman. I thought he was too stoic. I thought he was a little bit stiff, and I felt like he was a little bit more concerned of like. I just didn't think he was that comfortable on camera just yet, and I feel like he's kind of gotten a lot more comfortable on camera. And in fact, I think he's had a lot better in-depth interviews than even Rogan, especially like I mean, there's definitely a lot of interviews I can even call back to, but what was the one? The David Fravor interview was really good. I like all the Mark Zuckerberg interviews that he's done as well. In the
last couple of weeks, he's been like really killing it with the episodes, like pumping them out. It makes me feel like we're not doing enough.
Yeah, and he's still not doing shorts, right?
Yeah, he's not doing shorts, and he needs a shorts editor. That would be
He's a hire Andrew.
Yeah, someone. But yeah, I think that your perception of him has just changed. I think he's maintained a pretty good, like even in the beginning, because I listened to all of his first episodes last year, and they were still really good and really in depth. top tier guest from the get-go. Max Tegmark was his first guest. And if you're in AI or in science, if you know Michio Kaku, there's probably a good chance you might know who Max Tegmark is. Reason why I know Michio Kaku is because I watched a lot of Science Channel when I was working at this one job. I was allowed to watch TV while I was
fascinated by smart people making hard concepts.
Yeah,
really
well, space.
down.
I love space too. I love space, and we left that window's open. It's all good though. It'll stay open. Yeah, I mean, I just love the concept of space, and I not the concept of space, but like the science of space, and it's been one of my favorite like topics and areas of study: astrology, astrophysics, and all that stuff. And that leads to all those other smart people. That's around the time I learned about Elon Musk, and I knew I wanted a Tesla then. You know, this is 2012, before Tesla was cool.
That's true. Now it's too cool, right?
Yeah. Now it's too cool. I still want one though.
That's so true. I think that the reason why I said that about Lex is because I know specifically whenever you go on Rogan's podcast, he would talk about like taking a lot of the comments to heart and the things that people would say, and Rogan would be like, don't read your comments. Just don't even look into them. Like, don't care. Like, you're having a large impact. You're going to have a large group of people who are also not going to like you and not be okay with you or try to get clout from different types of things that they say. That's just the world we live in now. And I feel like he's kind of leaned off of that is what I'm saying.
He's executed on the video podcast very well.
Yeah.
I think not everyone does video podcasts. Like, a lot of people don't even think podcast as video, but he's executed very well on that, and I think that's driving the source of his growth, being on YouTube like that. Like his episodes get like 1 million plays now, like, on YouTube.
So I don't think we ever asked this about each other, but what was like the first podcast you ever listened to? Because I have some stories about this, and it's been a lot. It's kind of weird to call back on some, but I wanted to hear your story first.
Well, I was listening to Joe Rogan before I even knew what a podcast was, and I when he was doing the Fleshlight as one of his sponsors.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's actually there's a whole story behind that. I won't sidetrack into that though. Yeah, I think I didn't really start getting into podcast until like 2017. Really much. Like I may have heard a few. And I never really listened to Joe Rogan's podcast that much. It was mostly just clips on YouTube. And then I would watch a full episode if I liked the clips. And I still do that. So I would say, yeah, Joe Rogan. And then Impact Theory is interesting because it's like a podcast, but it's not a podcast with Tom Bilyeu.
Yeah.
He has it set up like a podcast, but it's really high produced, like video wise. It's really well.
Interview. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's more like a TV show than it is a podcast. But you can like lock your phone if you have YouTube Premium. You can lock your phone and like just listen to it like I do. Like a lot of the times I'm not even watching those. So listen to a lot of Impact Theory, and yeah, that's really like David Dobrik's podcast Views. That was one of my first podcasts that I listened to where I was listening to it weekly. Like I would be every Thursday, like waiting for the next one. That was the first time I got into like a consistent habit of listening to a single podcast.
Got hooked on one specifically.
Yeah. What about you? What's your first?
Speaking of podcasts, these podcasts don't make themselves. It takes a lot of work, and we have sponsors that help us pay for everything and promote this show. So here are our sponsors. The first one is the People's Tiny House Festival, which will be this weekend on July 1st and 2nd at the Ranch Events Complex, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. both days. Check it out. Go see it. It's an awesome time. It's actually what this episode is really about, the reason why we recorded it for the most part. And that's People's Tiny House Festival. Check it out and get your tickets. The next sponsor is Planet Duct. Planet Duct is a premier air duct cleaning company. They do residential and commercial, and they were just the last guest on this episode, actually. Brandon Kirk of Planet Duct has been sponsoring this show from the very beginning, since the first episode, and make sure to check them out. They're awesome if you have any air duct cleaning needs in the southern Colorado area across the Front Range. Make sure to check out Planet Duct. It's not hard to forget their name, planetduct.com, and get a quote. Reach out to them. Tell them COS Business Podcast sent you. Okay, so the next sponsor is Recon Marketing. Recon Marketing is actually Marcus's other company. So they do marketing services for businesses. Top quality, lots of experience, and they know what they're doing when it comes to growing your business through marketing efforts. So if you want help or need help with marketing, make sure to reach out to Recon Marketing. We're going to keep this nice and succinct. And this is the sponsors for this podcast. Thank you for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe and tell us below what your thoughts are about this episode, about this show, and just any kind of insight is always great. So now let's get back to the show.
Well, the funny thing is that, so we're going to have this guy probably on this podcast this year, my buddy Steve Morocco.
Oh, yeah.
We've been friends for a long time, since 2015. When he did my very first tiny house festival, he was the videographer that we hired for. That's how we became friends.
Oh, okay.
He was good friends with one of my close friends at the time, and then we made the connection via that recommendation, and we just struck up like a real quick friendship after that. And anybody that knows Morocco, which once we get that interview, you can kind of unpack who he is, but I always say he's like the boy genius. He's very, very analytical, very quick-witted, and very like well-read on a lot of different things that he does. And way back in the day, so like was it 8 years ago when we first kind of started this entrepreneurial journey around the same time together, he was getting me into this podcast called Startup. And it was such a good podcast. And I didn't really know too much about podcasts even back then. I've heard of a couple here and there, but this one was literally a podcast about starting up a podcast. And like the first episode was...
Was it Pat?
No, it was...
I can't remember his last
name. It was
name.
Gimlet Media that did it, but I forgot the main character. I don't think his name was Pat, but it started off with like the main character pitching the podcast to an investor, Chris Sacca. Do you guys know who that is? Big Silicon Valley investor, startup person, like big name in that community. He's helped all the big ones that we know from Silicon Valley. And it's kind of funny because he just has like, I think he has like his phone either in his pocket or on the table, and you kind of hear like this really like haphazard pitch on like what it's going to be, and you can tell he's super nervous. And then Chris Sacca just like stops him and is like, hey, this is what you should do. This is what you need to do in order to like make a proper pitch to an investor. And that's like that was like the hook of the show, is like, wow, like this guy has no idea what he's doing, and he's making a podcast about starting a podcast. And then it kind of goes through the progressions, and then he has like a radio background, but it shows like the history of like podcasts at that moment and what was the big ones. Like Serial was like the biggest podcast at that time, and like goes through the progressions of like when they actually start getting big, which is really cool, but all while showing like other instances of startup businesses. Because that's really the premise of the actual podcast itself, is to highlight startups, kind of like ours back in the day.
And you should look at your podcast or your YouTube channel or whatever as a business, I think.
Yeah. So it was really cool. It got me hooked, and that was like the first one, like you said, where it just got me like. And the thing about it, I think I started it when I was like already on for like 7 months, so there's like already like 1 or 2 seasons into it.
You can binge it.
I could binge it, so that's what I did. I binged it.
That's what I did with David Dobrik's, because I was like a year or two. They do it weekly. Like I listened to like 52 of them as I was like hiking and stuff.
Yeah, I learned so much. I learned about Y Combinator and Excel. Like that's where I learned about like the whole startup community and like what's going on in Silicon, is from that podcast.
Nice.
And I just remember like, I mean, thinking of like what it was then and what it is now, like it's completely changed, right? Like podcasts has a huge video element to it now, right?
Yeah, you just reminded me, actually. My podcasting kind of goes way back farther than that. When I had I was about to say it was an actual iPod, but it wasn't. It was an iPhone. one of the first few. I was working at Hardee's, like I was 17 years old, and I would download these conversations, and I don't even like think people thought of them as podcast. But I remember it was as I was starting my burger delivery company, Mr. Giggles is what it was called.
You and Mr. Giggles,
yeah.
everything.
And I was starting my burger delivery company, and I remember listening to this conversation with the founder of Applebee's, and him just going about like how like just going into the details of the business and talking about how most theme type restaurants or theme type bars, they have a lifespan of like 5 years, and like if they get 3 to 5 years, and then you have to start a new one. And so for him to have not Applebee's, Rainforest Cafe.
Oh,
Rainforest Cafe, 100%.
Completely different.
Yeah. And so Rainforest Cafe was one of those very themed kind of things, and like super themed. And like, I don't know if it's still around now, but at the time, like it had been around for a while. It was one of the first type of like theme style, like restaurant experiences that blew up. And it was just cool listening to his story, and it was like so inspiring. And I would be listening to these while I was working at Hardee's, just getting pumped and like having these conversations, or listening to these conversations, and then with my friend, like talking about the conversations in depth. And I remember we were at my house, I was telling my friend about the conversation I was listening to on like technically a podcast, what it would be called now. And then the other guy standing next to us, like while we were having this conversation, and I remember telling my one friend, that he was the only person I could feel like I could have these deep conversations with. And I totally, like, it was disregarding of the other person's feelings, didn't even realize that it made him feel isolated. And then he was like, oh, that's messed up. And I felt bad. But yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Well, it kind of goes against the norm if you think about like what a podcast is, because I mean, we can define what a podcast is. I was going to say a conversation, but no, it goes further than that. Because you got Andrew Huberman. But like
Serial isn't
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's a horror, or not a horror, but a crime podcast.
It's like a scripted podcast.
Very scripted, 100% scripted.
One crazy thing to think about is like in this world where everything is getting more shorter form, shorter videos, 10-second, 5-second shorts or whatever it might be. Here you have like a long form podcast.
Well, the shorts drive traffic to the longer form stuff. That's
exactly.
Why I look at it.
But why do you think people are so interested in both? Because you would think in a world that people have, or what they're saying is that we have shorter and shorter lifespans. We are interested in deep conversations. Why do you think that is? It's something that, I mean, I know why I am personally, but why do you think like the masses are? I don't know if maybe we are like the masses, but.
Well, not everyone listens to podcasts.
Males, yeah. Majority of males, right?
Well, I mean, most people probably don't listen to podcasts. It's popular, more popular than ever, but still most people don't listen to podcasts. Is how I feel. I think there's probably data to back that up, but.
It probably defines like what, when you say like the majority, like baby boomers, since they're probably still the majority, that might, I mean, I would say majority of them probably don't, but I would say a lot of millennials do. And
a lot of millennials do. Maybe Gen Zers don't yet. Like, I don't know. It's an interesting, I'd have to look it up and check out those
definitely
numbers.
Millennials though, like our generation for sure.
But I feel like most people just aren't interested in long podcasts. You hear a lot of people say, and I think it's the most ridiculous excuse, I'm not going to listen to a 3-hour conversation. I'm not going to listen to an hour-long thing. Neither am I. I'm breaking it up, you know? It's like I'm not sitting... just because you hit play doesn't mean you have to sit through the whole thing.
Yeah.
People forget about that. I
think they think it's a movie, that's why.
Yeah.
It's not a movie.
Yeah. It's a book.
It's so true. Like I listen to... I just started doing this with that last year of like running, because I used to have like a high tempo thing to run. I don't need that anymore. I can listen to a podcast. Yeah. So now I can listen to like a Rogan podcast, but it could be like 4 runs. To finish one.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. And sometimes your run goes a little longer because you want to keep listening to it, I bet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, the evolution of this thing. It's been around for a little over, give or take 10 years.
Yeah.
And like what it's come to, and like how people have made it their own, and just like the different types. Because I feel like a lot more scripted 10 years ago. I mean, there were the Rogans still around that time, but like a lot's changed. It's really cool to see, you know?
Yeah, there's the conversation styles and yeah, I mean, it's cool. Because you got the ones that are really highly prepared for, but they're still conversation styles as well. I like those. Like Lex does that. Lex really prepares a lot, you know. Like he gets into it, you know. And you know, I think we could prepare a little bit on some of ours, and we do, you know. So, but sometimes it's just free flowing like this one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. So we do have some things coming up. It is the 13th of June. Nuggets just won championship yesterday. World champions. Go Nuggets.
Chicken nuggets.
We have chicken nuggets. We have the People's Tiny House Festival coming up July 1st and 2nd in Loveland, Colorado, the Ranch Events Complex. So that's super exciting. We'll all be there as well. Gosh, this is my 7th event. And
7.
Yeah, lucky number 3 at the ranch. I love the ranch.
This is the 3rd one at the ranch. Oh, wow.
This is the 3rd one you've been to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta be real with you. By far the best venue I've ever done an event at. I've been to 5 different ones. 3 or how many in Colorado Springs? 3 in Southern Colorado. 1 in Denver that I was going to do an event at in 2020, and then obviously Loveland. The most beautiful manicured space. It's beautiful, great team to work with. Like they're always there to help. Like it's awesome. It's awesome.
It's much better than the other ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I don't want to name too many names of like ones we've worked with in the past. But the ranch, they do events for a living. This is what they do. And they have a full service team with every little thing.
Yeah.
Whenever you're touring it, we were touring it. Edgar went with me last weekend or 2 weekends ago, and they were mowing the grass and making sure everything's already primed and proper for event season. Like they are ready to go. Every little piece of that place is well manicured and taken care of. It's a well-oiled machine. And that's what you want to see when you're doing big events, especially outside. Like I've been to events, or I've done events at venues where they don't even mow the grass for you, or they throw something at you like a week of the event.
That's interesting. Yeah.
They try to make you sign personal guarantees the week of the event when you're like, hey, we already signed contract. What are you talking? Like, if anything, that's more unprofessional, to make someone do something else that's outside of contract. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I'm just like, for everything, I would say that the reason why I'm still going is because I have a good relationship with that venue specifically.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see like what's happened with just the tiny house movement in general. Like when you came in 2 years ago, I started kind of like incorporating more things into it other than just tiny houses. And I love that. You got like the vans, you got like the school buses or the schoolies. You have like all these different types of like huts or all these different types of things. So I've been dubbing it this year as like a simple living movement. I did it last year too. I kind of got lost in the mix because I used it as a slogan last year, but this year it's like prominent, and you actually helped me with the logo this year of like simple living for all, which I think is very important to like have at the forefront for this year, because I always wanted this to be like a mirror of like everything going on in, like, again, the tiny house movement, but I call it the simple living movement. And like affordability, especially in Colorado, man, like it's insane out here, especially in the springs. Like we're matching Denver now and a lot of the cost of living here. And I'm feeling it. I know you guys are probably feeling it too. It's insane.
Yeah, it's 300,000 $300,000 for a townhouse, like easy. You know what I mean? Like you can get a really nice house for 200,000 in like Kansas City, for example, which is insane. It's like, speaking of tiny houses, like what's the tiniest house like you've ever seen? Like,
oh, I got one for you. So way back in the day when we first started this, we were really big into like luminaries in this movement. And there was a guy that was like, everybody in the tiny house movement dubbed him as like the godfather of the tiny house movement. His name was Jay Schaefer. He was actually at the event in 2021. You got an actual like clip of him in one of the clips that you made for me.
Oh, nice.
He was like one of the speakers, and you actually got a clip of him talking.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And he built out something in a tiny house in the 90s, like a tiny house on wheels, like the normal tiny houses you see like on all the cool shows now on Netflix or on the mainstream networks and stuff. And it was like 80 square feet, tiny. That thing was tiny.
How much is this?
It's definitely more than 80 square feet. We think about 8 by 10, that's 80 square feet. This is probably 12 by 10 or 15 by 12 or something. This is a bigger room.
8 by 10 is like a little U-Haul, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. And so he brought that very first one to, it was my very first festival. He actually brought that one to it.
From the 90s?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And he actually like got showcased on Oprah back in like the 90s and those days. It might have been the 90s or early 2000s when he got featured.
And being on Oprah was like being on Joe Rogan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's big time, dude. Yeah. So, yeah. So that's the smallest one. I think that's the smallest. One year we had a guy bring a porta potty like build.
That's what I was just imagining. I was imagining like, what if you had a tiny house that you could collapse and like build in a day, like just to sleep while standing up.
Dude, you would have loved it. You would have loved this guy. His name was Matt, and he came every year besides the years that you've come. So not in recent years, but they called him the Office Hobo. That he wrote a book called The Office Hobo.
You told me about him.
And he like wrote a book, and like he did it like all anonymous. No one would know who he was, or like, and it was about him like sleeping in his office, and he was there for I think years. And never told anybody, once he got his own life, in a situation where he lived somewhere else, like just did that. But like it was the whole story about him living at the office and like him discovering this whole part of life of like, I don't really need much. This, like the whole like assortment of like finding a place to have of your own and all these different things. It's all in the mix of like things that not everybody wants out of their life. Yeah. And so he wrote like a whole book about that. And he's the one who built that porta potty build. And it was really cool. And it was not meant to be moved. And he drove that sucker from California. And like, it should not have moved from California. But he made it here. And he made it perfect. It's just a porta potty.
Why couldn't it move?
Well,
it's porta pole.
You'd think. But it was like a handicap porta potty. And like the way he set up.
Oh, was it the bigger one? Okay, nice.
Yeah. It was cool. And he had like a whole like plant and garden setup on top of it. It was freaking cool. I'll have to show you a picture after this.
So he would, like sleeping would be hard. You'd have to stand up.
Yeah, I have to show you some pictures of it. I don't remember how the interior was with it.
Or you fold a bed out on the outside or something like that.
It was all inside, everything, I think.
Oh, interesting.
It was cool.
Maybe it has an extension where you can like pop your feet out, or he was really short.
They have like Murphy bed setups too, where it's like desk and then turns into beds kind of setups. I don't know if you've ever seen those before, where it has like a full desk and like booth seat and then like a fold out into like a full bed. They have some cool stuff out there that's, it's better for people who are more minimalistic. Before I met you, I was definitely like, I'm still pretty minimalistic with the things I do and the things I wear and stuff. The only thing I can't do now is like I have a lot of computers now, so I'd probably have to get my computers to live the lifestyle I used to. But I only used to. Me and Edgar were talking about this day. I only used to just have a laptop, and that was my life, and I loved it. And I just worked from coffee shop to coffee shop. Those were my offices.
If I got not addicted, but if I got adjusted to a laptop, I could probably do it. But like editing on a laptop, I know people do it. I know people can do it. I just don't want to do it. I feel confined. I feel like I like my big screen because it opens up my creativity. Is what I feel like, but it could be just a internal belief.
You've seen the greener grass on the other side. That's how I am too. Now I have the dual monitors. I'm like, there's no way I can do it. Like I refuse to even work on certain things if I'm not in front of my dual monitors.
Certain things. Yeah.
Like,
I won't edit on my laptop. Well, also because my laptop's.
I mean, think about like website editing too. Like you have when you do website editing, you have like a back end, side that you're editing on, and then you have like the front end, like the actual the actual updated published part. Yeah. And you want to look at both sides at the same time while you're editing. Of course you do.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's just things.
Some benefits for sure.
Yeah, like as a videographer, video editor, as a marketer, like we need those different types of things. But I mean, they do have those options, and people do put them in like their school bus conversions. Like the big wides. Like people get super creative, man, with this lifestyle. And it's just been really cool to see all the types of people who come out of it. I used to say like way back in the day, this is so crazy. So in 2015, I put on my first event, didn't know what the hell I was doing, dude. Like sunburnt, like my eyes were like so bloodshot from like dirt. Cause we did it at the mining museum up in northern Colorado Springs. It was awesome that year. Like one of the biggest years we ever had, but it was all on like, there was like a dirt road on some of the venues. Like imagine getting all that dirt in your eyes for like
it's making my eyes water just thinking about it.
Dude. So anyways, like I was running around like a chicken with its head cut off, and then I left my laptop case just like chilling in the middle of like the whole festival, like on the ground. And I didn't even realize until like 3 hours later, I was like, oh my gosh, someone took that. There's no way. And I went back to the same spot in the middle of like thousands of people, and I was still there. I was like, what in the world, like anywhere, like literally anywhere. Think of it like even a park. Yeah. It would be stolen.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, you would think so. Yeah. I know Casey Neistat tested that theory a few times and it wasn't stolen.
Oh, really?
So I think maybe we just have like a predisposition to think that it's more likely someone steals than they actually do.
Dude, I also think it's the vibes of wherever you're going. The vibes of that year were just it was such a magical year for that festival. And I always say that my festival brings together like, if there's anything that's like a magic pill to like bring together this polarized country, for whatever reason, tiny houses do it because both conservatives and liberals love tiny houses, whether it's like living in it full time or like buying a bunch of them and throwing them on land and making money from Airbnb or like building out a community, whatever it might be. Like there's a lot of uses for these things. I think people look at these things with a really small lens. Like if you really think about it, like there's a lot of different use cases for these, and people just think of them as like just these houses that you're throwing on a piece of land, and what are the legalities? Yeah, screw that. Like it's more than just all of that stuff.
It is. There's a lot of things that you have to think about too before you get into that, because you have to figure out how are you going to hook up. What is your electricity like? If you need to hook up, like maybe you have it set up where you don't need to hook up. Like if you do the RV camper lifestyle, like it may be not feasible because all the land plots in Colorado Springs or surrounding areas are super expensive. You might as well just get a house, because some people get it to save money, and then if that's the reason why, maybe you might find out that it's not that way. But maybe you will. Like it depends on how you set it up. Like if you get solar, like if you get the electric running through it, like how Brian does with his living vans, and if you get it properly set up, you can. But like if you need to hook up, you got to think about that. You have to rent out a camp area.
Yeah, it's true. And like if you think about it, like I mean, you have the vans like you were talking about with Brian. Those are a whole different ball game, because we always say like, why don't you do a festival in the middle of downtown Denver, Marcus? Well, it's not feasible. Like imagine carrying something that long through downtown Denver, and that it's just not going to happen.
Like first the tiny houses?
Yeah, or just like leaving it in a parking lot downtown Denver. Like,
oh, fuck that, yeah.
You're going to get some eyeballs and some probably bad people going around it. But like with a van, it's so inconspicuous, right? You can like leave that and you can potentially stay in it overnight, and there might be any issues, and they're just easier to bring around. It's not costing thousands of dollars to drive from like California to well, maybe it is with the gas prices, but it's not as expensive to do that with a van versus a tiny house, right?
Yeah.
So it's just there's a lot of different types of ways to bridge the gap for affordable living, and that's kind of what the purpose of my festival has always been. Along with food trucks, so we have the food trucks, along with vendors and like yard games and like live music and all the other fun stuff. What has been your impression over the years? Because you've done 2 of them with me now, and like what has been your thoughts with the festival and just being a part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fun time, but I'm there with friends, so it's gonna be a fun time regardless, you know.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's very impressive what you've done, and I'm definitely I'm proud of you for being able to build that, you know. And I think it's a great environment, and I think it's pretty impressive for sure, man. Like, yeah, it's an interesting question because, like I said, I am behind the scenes, so it's like,
yeah,
and I don't have a tiny house, so it's not necessarily my demographic, you know. Like, I'm not in that demographic. Maybe I am. I don't know. I probably am.
See you in the van thing. That'd be kind of cool.
I'd love to do the van thing, or even the boxable, or I mean, I'm very minimalistic in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, I know you are.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, yeah.
I think the footprint of like our generation is gonna be a little bit different. One, we're having less kids. 2, there are some of us that get like a bunch of stuff and like toys and like, you know, boats and all this, but like I feel like it's by and large it's less millennials doing that. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, they're already doing it. If you think about like the houses they're building, even at Colorado Springs, are more narrow. Like you're getting like a quarter of a lot versus like two acres or something for a 1 lot of a house. So it's already happening. Like houses themselves are already having a smaller footprint. Because
do you see the neighborhood? You probably haven't seen it, but there's a neighborhood kind of by my house, but they're houses that are basically cut in half. That's what they look like, but they're like permanent plot. You know, but there's a whole neighborhood of them, and they have like a bunch of different colors too. What's the road? I'm trying to think of the road. I can't think of it. Chelton. Do you know Chelton?
Yeah.
Chelton and Academy.
Yeah.
If you like continue going east from Chelton, there's like a whole bunch of neighborhoods over there that are basically like tiny houses, but for permanent. Like, but they're 2-story too as well.
Are they like duplexes?
No, they're by themselves. They're separate. And,
oh, really?
And they look like permanent tiny houses in a way. And you could imagine, you know, people are being forced to do that too in a sense because they can't afford a full home, so they pay for a half of a home.
Well, not even half the price for half a home either, though, right? They're probably paying like 75% of a full home.
Yeah, exactly. But still, like that's a lot, you know. 70.
Yeah, it's still probably 300,000, like you're saying, or something like that.
Yeah, that's still It's interesting. So I mean, they may be 200,000, you know.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's a whole thing, and like seeing those new neighborhoods pop up, I've never seen something like that before. That was interesting.
It's so crazy.
They're being built right now. Actually, I don't even think people are living in them.
So there was a time where I lived down in that area off Shelton with so my family. We moved to Colorado Springs in '94, and I lived down there. And then my grandparents lived down there since '84, and then they moved away in like 2010 or 2012 or something like that. So I'm familiar with that area. That's why when I go down there, there's a lot of memories and places that I know and everything like that.
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
like we've talked about this before, like I was a caregiver for my grandfather for a long time. Like right before I met you is when I stopped, like right before, like months before I met you is when I kind of stopped. But that's been a huge motivation for me to like be successful for so long, was like my family, my grandparents and all those different things. And then once they like, you know, they pass away and stuff like that, you have to find new motivations in life. That could be a challenge, man. It's like, there's so many ways to like get up in the morning and try, but there's just some days where you don't want to, you know? And so like you constantly have to figure out why you're doing what you're doing.
That's been every day for me.
Yeah.
Lately.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. And like, for me, the only way I've been able to like figure that all out is like, I just love, I don't even know if I love it or if I'm brainwashing myself, but I embrace the hard shit. And it's been the only way I've been able to push through it, because I'm like, okay, there's been some days I'm like, is this ever going to end? Am I ever going to have to worry about this and that financially, this and this and that? And then when I just say like, hey, this is the life you chose, this is what you're not having to do. You're not having to report to somebody, or like for me, like that was a no-go after my last job. I loved my last job in a lot of ways. I learned a lot from it. Gosh, like the reason why I'm such a good entrepreneur now is because I learned so much from my last job, for sure. But like I also learned like what I didn't want out of my life, which was having that.
Yeah.
And I knew that was a temporary thing to have in order to get to the places I wanted to go. But I also like have surrendered an outcome of failing and going back to a job if I have to, and then, you know, continuing on my journey as an entrepreneur. Whatever it might be, I'm already into it. I'm already in it. I don't even want to pick up my head and even look at anything else because I'm just like, I'm in it.
Yeah.
No matter how hard it gets, I'm in
it.
And that's something that I've learned over the years, because like I've spent years just trying to figure out, okay, what are my motivations for this? I have my core motivations that get me up every day. I'm also very like, I have my habits in place, waking up early, going to bed. Like I've been doing that for years. So all those things are in place, which is great. And that works for me. It doesn't have to work for everybody too.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no matter how much I remind myself that I don't want a job, I still have been struggling to find the motivation to do things no matter what. Like I know that I don't want that. I do weigh that. I do look at the what life could be like and what I don't want, and then it still is not enough for me to get back on track. I don't know. Like
well, like the best way to motivate you is through a fuck ton of pain too.
Yeah.
So I mean, and the reason why I say that is because like the way I've always been motivated is like when my backs are absolutely against the wall, and like I've probably gone too far into the deep end or like in the red. Like I shouldn't have let it ever get there, and maybe I have to get even a couple more inches in there for me to really be like, okay, and then I kick it into gear.
That's what I'm thinking, but I've had my back against the wall for 8 months now, it feels like. So
yeah.
So it's not like it's not like I just gave up when the first sign of pressure. I haven't given up, you know, yet.
Yeah.
And so, but it just like you said, maybe it's a couple more inches back. I don't know.
Well, it's also, you know, like logically it does make sense to like have something that's secure that you don't have to worry about every fucking day about, right? And like
I may be forced, you know, in a couple months to have no other choice but to get a job.
For me, like if I surrendered, like I told you, I surrendered the outcome. If that ever came down to it, okay, that would suck. My ego would get crushed, but
that's what's happening.
I would do it.
That's what's happening to me.
I would do it.
Like, is it pride that's messing with me right now? I don't know.
I'd jump back into it, whatever it might be. I mean, but that's something I decided a long time ago because I've done so many big risks that I'm like, okay, well, I might as well continue on to like, I'm already in the ocean. Like I already lost sight of the shore. I'm in it. So might as well keep going, you know? And there's been a lot of successes from that, but it's like, it's also like operating off blind fate in a lot of ways. Like it is pure blind fate. Pure blind fate. And I know faith.
Yeah.
Pure blind faith. Not fate. Well, yeah, it's fate for me. No, I'm kidding. No, it's true though, for sure. And I think that again, like surrounding yourself with a good, community of people who are going through the same struggles, talking to them about it, hearing their perspectives. But sometimes it's just not time, or sometimes it just doesn't make sense, and that's okay too. Like you gotta understand, like you gotta throw that ego aside and just figure out what's best for you personally, and really get that dialed in, because we both know this isn't for everybody. This isn't meant for everybody, and that's completely fine, you know?
Yeah, and I've been doing this for 4 years, so it's become my identity. So it feels like I'm dying. It feels like a piece of me is not just a piece of me. All of me is dying.
Yeah, yeah,
and that's hard.
Yeah,
and it's, you know, I don't know. It's like business is interesting. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah.
Well, you're not normal. We'll put it that way. You're not the conventional person I've ever met.
You're not the first person to tell me that. Yeah. Some people have put it in other words. Someone like this. Some people like to say eccentric. I remember the first time I heard that, I was working at Hardee's, and someone said, "You're eccentric," and I never heard that word before. And I was like, "What does that mean?"
That's a big word.
I just never heard it before, and I looked it up, and I was like, "Yeah, I think that's a compliment."
Yeah,
I'll take it as a compliment.
Gosh. Yeah. Well, let me know, man. Like I said, this is. I'll tell you this, that like I've been in slumps for a year before, and there's no other way around it besides you figuring it out for yourself. You can have perspectives. You can have all these different types of opinions.
That's the problem, is you got to figure it out yourself.
It's not going to help unless like you come to that realization for yourself.
No one else is going to do it for you. That's like true.
One thing I will say though is like, for me, I'm a guy that hates vacations and hate them. Just because I love what I do. I love the struggle. I love competing and this is definitely business is competing. But like going to Italy for a week was like the craziest thing I've ever had experienced in a long time, because I didn't worry about anything, and it felt weird living a life without worry for like a few days.
Well, you did have to worry. You had different worries though, right?
Yeah, I think my attention was somewhere else, you know, and the worries of like where it was were not.
Where
as
we parking,
big.
you know?
Yeah, they were like, I was like, man, like if this is what like a normal person who has a 9-to-5 job, like this is pretty like low stress, like you know, traveling through Rome, like parking and all these different things. What if I get a ticket? Like, these are smaller worries.
We need to get to this place. We don't know
than
if
my
we're
livelihood,
make it, you know?
Exactly, way smaller worries
for sure.
And
like,
you
had that set before you left, so
yeah. So, but it gave me a huge reset of like my mind, and I'm entering this season and this can change. You know, my festival's in 2.5 weeks, but I'm a lot calmer than I've ever been. Maybe to a fault. You know, I'm just like not worrying too much about it.
Maybe to a good. Like,
but again, it goes back to like surrendering the outcome. I think that's a very powerful thing to do. It's like, what happens if the worst thing happens? Yeah, what am I going to do?
And your perspective on things too. Like, you personally, it may affect you very badly if you don't get more people there this year than you did last year. It may make you feel like you're failing, but then you look at it from the outside, it's a very successful event, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know if that's the case or not, but I'm just saying, like, the way you specifically interpret that is going to be different than anyone else.
Your priorities change as you get older too. And
That's
I have recon too. So like I could tell you this, before I had recon, it was the be all end all for me. This event. The
festival, yeah.
It was everything to me. And I would be like, okay, shut everything out for like 2-3 months leading into the event, because there's too much on the line. And there's still a lot on the line for this. But there's other priorities now. Yeah. And if I take an L on it, that sucks. It's in front of all my friends and family, but you move on, man. Like, that's part of the game too.
But also, we wouldn't consider, just because the event isn't bigger, that it's an L. We wouldn't think that. Yeah. So, but you might, or you might would have before. Right. So we yeah, for sure. That's cool. Yeah.
Just gotta do the best you can at the end of the day. Like, there's so many things outside of your control, and for me, like, especially in my younger years, I always wanted to control as much as I possibly could. And I still have instances like that, but there are so many things outside of my control.
We're trying to bring order to chaos. Like.
Yeah. We could be in a recession, you know, like I think we are, but it doesn't matter.
There's still a lot of ways out there. Like, people are still spending money.
Yep. Yep.
Regardless of this, it may be a little less, but there's still people out there, you know. And I think if you get there's a term coined where, I don't remember the term, but basically it's that fear mindset. Like, you can FUD. It's what it's called. FUD. Fear something. Let's look it up. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It breeds fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And,
what does?
Seeing everyone talk about the recession, but there's abundance out there, and there's people who are still spending, and like, if you're in that mindset, it's going to take you down even more. And I'm not in that mindset. I mean, I think we're in a recession, but I don't think my business is affected by that. I think my business is affected by other things. Maybe my mind is shifting. Maybe my aspirations are shifting. Like, I do know that I want to have a very successful YouTube channel, and I want to run it as a YouTube business. That's kind of the goal. Like, you should be able to treat YouTube like a business, no matter where you're at in your YouTube. No matter if it's a business or if it's a YouTube business. What I mean is, when you grow an audience, you can go out and sell brand deals. You can go out, like, basically get sponsors. You know, it's basically like having a newsletter or an event. Having a YouTube channel, like, is that, because when you want to start selling products to these people, whether you're selling merch or you're selling brand or you're selling advertising space on your channel, like, once you build the channel, most people look at YouTube the wrong way. They think that, I have to get AdSense. Actually, every big creator will tell you AdSense is their smallest form of revenue. Yeah. Like, they're making more money off of the brand deals and off of the merch. That's where they're making most of their money. So most people go into YouTube thinking, I need to get monetized through the platform so that I can have ads on my videos. Really, that's the smallest way to make money. Some channels actually don't even make money off of that. David Dobrik didn't, because his videos would get unmonetized because they were vulgar or,
demonetized.
Too edgy, demonetized, yeah. And, like, that's the key. And my goal is to grow an audience, and then build, and then treat it like a business, and then make money off of that YouTube, off of my YouTube. And that's what I really want. That's what I've always wanted. That's why I got into video production in the first place. And I think it's been a slight misalignment, me running Beemit in a ways, because I wanted to make money and it wasn't working with YouTube. And so I was like, okay, I can learn all these other skills. But I'm actually very introverted, and doing sales is a very extroverted thing. I thought from the beginning, I was like, I'll do this enough and I'll get used to it that I'll just get used to it and get good at it and it won't be a thing. Actually, it's just been going against the grain the whole entire time. Yeah. Like and I think it's coming to like a point where it's almost too much for me, that I'm realizing maybe that's not what I want to do. So maybe it's just me finding a business partner to keep Beemit going, and that someone that could take care of the things, something that can complement me on things, or maybe it's going for the YouTube thing, and or maybe in a month I'll have a change of heart. Like, I know that last year was my most successful year in Beemit, and my main mistake though was that I was like, I thought I was going to have 4K plus months forever. It didn't happen forever. It stopped, and and then I was burnt out, and then I haven't been able to pick myself up since. I have been, but barely. I've been making it. I've been still doing some things and barely making it, but yeah, it's been interesting. Yeah.
Burnout too, right?
What's that?
Burnout too.
I don't know what burnout is. You know.
You know when you have it. Right?
I don't know. I don't know if it's burnout. I think it's something else. Maybe burnout plays a little bit into it, but if it's something that you're wanting to do and wanting to grow, you should be able to push through that. And like, but I haven't been able to really. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think I've seen it in the past year for you. You've been doing other projects, like doing the beer making, which is awesome, but it feels like you have like a need to fill another void that you're not able to fill right now.
Well, the beer was actually came out of scarcity. I wanted to make beer because I was spending too much money on alcohol.
I get you.
Yeah. And the beer doesn't take long. I mean, it takes 4 hours in a day, you know, and then you have 6 weeks. So, like, I mean, it can take some time, but I mean, it's just like, you don't spend 24 hours of your time on your business. Like, there's other things you do, you know, and that was just like a little hobby thing. I don't think that was one of the other things, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
How do you have like a roadmap of like figuring out what's next?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know what's next. I don't even know if there's a next thing. It may still be Beemit. Mm-hmm. So I'm just trying to make sure that it's the right thing.
But how do you realize that? Do you like take some time, go on a drive, meditate?
I've done that for the last 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
I've been meditating on this, thinking about it, pondering it for about 2 months now.
Yeah.
That's why I did the pivot plan. That's why I rebranded. You know, I've been trying to do everything I can to try to keep this thing alive, and nothing's really working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. I think it's because I also don't charge enough. I think there's a few reasons why I don't charge enough. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Would it be the same way if you're making, 10, 15K a month?
No, it wouldn't. I think that's the problem but I have to be able to have the energy to 10 to 15K a month don't come out of nowhere. There's a lot of work that goes behind that. And it's a matter of being able to get that. And maybe I actually just need help with all that stuff. Maybe I'm tired of doing it alone. Yeah, I don't know.
I know I was for sure. Like, I know how lonely it gets. So I've always wanted a team to be with me. I always wanted to throw something out there big enough for other people to play in, for sure. Like an idea, vision, whatever it might be. And that's how I've tried to operate my businesses, for sure. And like I can tell you from Italy, like that was part of the reason why I didn't have to worry as much. There were things that probably I should have been known, like, but I have partners for a lot of those things. And I did check in on work like once or twice, and that's it. But having a team, having other owners or co-owners, that's really helped me being able to like shut off and not have to worry, if this ball is rolling when I'm not there, which when you're a one-man show, it essentially doesn't roll when you're not there,
Yeah. I mean, you got to set that up if you want to do that, for sure. But yeah, I've taken some time. I have all the time in the world to think about this. So I really do think I want to grow the YouTube channel, but that I'm about to be fucked. This is what I said, is what I've been saying. I'm about to be fucked soon. So I have to figure out something that will work and work fast. So I believe like within 30 to 60 days, if you do the right things, if it's all you're focused on, you can start making enough money enough money on YouTube, through YouTube. But I mean, I could also take the same energy and put it to Vement if I wanted to. But it's like, what if I take all that energy and put it into a YouTube channel? It's still an if. That's that risk thing that we have to take. We have to have that blind faith kind of going into that. Like, I know that if I put all my energy into this, full-time job plus OT into YouTube for the next 4 to 8 weeks, I will have something that I'm not only proud of, but is actually bringing in a lot, like not a lot of income, but enough income to get by. Like, you don't have to aim for, being Lambo YouTube, you don't have to aim for like making all this money. There's plenty of small channels that are making a couple grand a month and they're very happy with it. Like, imagine like if that's extra supplement. Imagine if I had that, maybe that'll help me with Vement, like, cause I don't have to worry about it. Like, I'm just so stressed right now. I'm in a very bad spot and I'm very stressed and that doesn't help at all. But yeah. I forgot what I was going with that.
Well, the pricing will help a lot with that, especially once you start landing the people that you need to land. I always say with a lot of our friends that like the customer is like the number one thing. And for me, like, I'm even seeing with like the clients I go after, which these are more established businesses making over, that's still not enough for what I'm trying to do in life. Like, I'm at a level where I want to get a lot, and I'm not talking about like big fish. Like, I want a client paying me $500,000 a month.
Yeah.
I have the skill set. We have the team to handle that.
For sure.
So there's no reason for me not to have that or to go out and search for something like that. I mean, imagine that, like one client that does all that for you. That's normal in the marketing agency world once you're established. That's normal. I want to go get that. I know I can get that. So I need to figure out a good roadmap to not only get that, but get more, like make a pipeline for that.
Yeah, those bigger clients too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Tim Ferriss talks about the bottleneck of the 80-20 kind of thing, where it's like 20% of your clients are bringing in 80% of your revenue.
Yeah. If
you cut off the other ones, like, you're going to be so much better. And yeah, I don't know. I have, I've pitched higher prices the last week. And it's just a matter of selling them too, because you can't just say a higher price without justifying it, like you have to. Well, with past clients, or you can. I don't know. Maybe I'm just in my head right there again. But yeah, it's interesting. So it's like, if we do a video, but we're also running a marketing campaign with the video, does that raise the value where we can charge higher prices? It's like, I want to be able to justify my prices, but it's hard when you want to. It's a very tricky thing to navigate, because you could start doing all this. What do they call that? Overachieving, over delivering. You can start adding all these extra things to over deliver, but then you find out that this client over here will pay you 3 times as much just to do the same amount of work.
That's exactly what's happened to me in the past. So like when I did the festival and I first started getting big sponsors, I was like, oh hell yeah, I got like a $5,000 sponsor. I'm gonna give them like a laundry list of everything I'm gonna do. They didn't give a crap.
Yeah,
they didn't give a crap. Like,
exactly.
I put their names on different types of trophies. I did like, hey, we're gonna have a banner for you over here. We're gonna call this like your village. You're gonna have your own area that's like has your name on it. We're gonna do like a marketing campaign. Like at the end of the day, I only came down to like 2 or 3 things, like their placement and like if they had some stage time to talk about that's it. That's literally it. And so I feel like as you're going through your business, you have to figure out like there are people who perceive a value of like one thing that you do solid at $10,000 for them.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do with the pivot plan, with the story brand videos, but I was running ads to them, but I shut them off last week because I'm running out of money. I've actually already out of money, to be honest. Yeah. So I don't know what to do. So I don't know if I want to grow a YouTube channel that I could be successful at, because now I can apply everything that I've learned on top of that. Like, I've already learned the YouTube game years ago, but I think there's a lot of discipline things that I need to learn that I haven't learned yet, which I'm working on as well too. I'm not drinking sugars, I'm exercising, everything. So getting all that stuff in order, I think, is the most important thing. But yeah, that's been zapping my energy because of, when you quit something that you've been doing for so long and you just quit it, it does take a toll. It takes up to a week or two to really get back to full flow. And yeah, so I'm in the process of that as well. Drinking non-alcoholic beer, it's been helping actually. Yeah, surprisingly, I thought
Is that what you were saying earlier when you said you wanted your athletic beer?
Yeah, Athletic Brewing Company is one of the beers. They do an IPA called Run Wild, and it's pretty cool. Athletic Brewing Company, they're sponsoring. No, I'm just kidding. I wish I wanted to bring one. I think it's a really cool concept because they probably couldn't name their brand that if they weren't non-alcoholic. There's probably some laws against saying something is healthy when it's got alcohol in it, I bet. Yeah. But they don't, although they still ID you, but it's dumb. I think it's in the systems at the grocery store. So it's whatever. But yeah, man, side note. I've learned to cut off side notes. I do side notes all the time, side thoughts, and they can derail conversations, and I'm learning how to catch a side thought and shove it in a bag and kill it.
Wow. That's some bad country shit right there. Yeah. No, man, I think like at the end of the day, like whatever you need to do, you just do it for yourself. Don't worry about what other people think. You're going to have the people who love you for who you are no matter what, and they're going to support whatever you decide to do. Yeah. So don't worry about anything as far as whatever decision you make. People are going to have your back.
I feel like I'm dying though.
Well, that's part of it. That's part of it. Yeah. I've lost people. I've lost my dog. That feels like dying when you lose something you really care about and you really love. Mm-hmm. That's life, man. But doesn't mean it's over.
Yeah, still young, still got a lot of things to do. I mean, yeah, I gotta figure out if I want to even do VMIT anymore. It's not an easy thing to say, by any means. Yeah.
Well, it can always motivate you by other things that you're going to do instead. I mean, everybody makes a career change in their life. Everybody. Yeah. Multiple ones. So just think of it that way.
It's been 4 years. I mean, that's a long time.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
But like, I think a lot of the basics will probably stay with you. Like, it sounds like you're always going to stay in like the video space.
It's not a failure. It's taking everything I've learned into whatever's next.
Just another pivot, dude.
Yeah.
Just another pivot. And I'm excited wherever that is. I know it's going to... You want it here, you want the decision now for like but it's going to take some fleshing out, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. That's completely fine, man.
But I'm almost fucked, so I got to figure something out.
Yeah, I've been fucked a couple times by business. Yeah, that's the one thing that's... I'm
almost like really
That's
fucked.
the rite of passage.
Yeah.
Like, I understand. I
figured, yeah. I know, yeah.
But yeah, I'm here for you, man, for sure.
Appreciate
I'm here for you. I got your back. What else? Is there anything else we talk about for the festival? I think anybody that's heard this for the first time, I do a tiny house festival every year. It's a full showcase of tiny houses, van conversions, school bus conversions, and any type of like simple living structures, along with vendors, food trucks, live music. We even have a lot of panel discussions that we're bringing back this year again, which is going to be kind of cool.
What's your favorite thing about the festival?
Yeah, I know exactly what it is now. Last year, it's kind of funny because I'm a very relationship-driven person, but I've never really been like that with my festival, which is kind of weird, right? This is like my baby. And last year, I got like a chance to really connect with the participants, the people who are living in tiny houses full-time who come to Expo, their builds, the builders, the vendors, all the participants, and got to like hang out and break bread with them and have like a potluck. That was really cool.
That was fun, yeah.
The community has always been unbelievable, and I've always like gotten glimpses of it here and there. That's why I've always raved about it. But like last year, we really got to hang out with them. You were there with me. Edgar was there. Like that was so cool. I love it. I love those people. Ukulele. Yeah, you should this year. The people are incredible. The community is just amazing, and like if anybody's interested in learning more about that, let me know too, because there's a lot of great people out there. It feels like some of the most genuine people come out of this type of stuff.
Yeah,
so that's always my favorite time, is like breaking bread along with like our MC John Kernahan. He's been a good friend for a long
John's
time.
Awesome.
He has my back so much. I've been through a lot of different types of craziness this year. Andrew even knows from a couple months ago about people talking a bunch of shade on me, and like that comes with the territory of having success with things, and I understand that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, especially when people are talking about my character and things of who I am. But it's really cool because you get to see who comes out and has your back during those times. He's one of those people. So like definitely a great friend, definitely a greght mentor, and
great business guy too.
Great business guy. We got to interview him 2 years ago. That was really cool.
On the podcast, if you want to check that out.
Live, that was so cool. All that stuff. But connecting with the people, man, that's the best part of the whole thing. It gets the stress out of the way. It makes everything worth it.
You know what else gets the stress out of the way? If you like and subscribe.
Yes. Like and subscribe. COS Business Podcast.
I'm learning how to keep doing that. You got to always throw that in there, especially if you're going to be successful on YouTube. That's an important thing.
These are the early days.
If you like and subscribe on this, tell us down below in the comments that you subscribed on this, and we'll get back to you. We'll reply to you.
With something.
Yes. We want to let you know that we're listening and we see you. You want to have like a call to action with the subscribe, With
I see me. I see you. Seeing me.
You hit that button, we'll hit your button.
Yeah.
We'll smack that button.
Hell yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to go over before we close out?
Smack the button.
There's a scroll moment again. My goodness.
Smack that butt in. Wow. All right. No, I think we're good. This has been over an hour. I know because the things beeped twice.
Yep, me too. That's when you know we're on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it. We've we've wrapped everything up pretty well. Any community announcements?
Still Fest coming up here soon. I don't know if this will be done by then, but it is June 24th, 2020. It's the week before my festival. Great guy. James is the CEO. Just unbelievable. How many distilleries are going to be there? I don't know if it says it on here.
I quit drinking, so I probably won't go.
Largest gathering of distilleries in southern Colorado. I know that much. And it's going to be at Black Hat Distillery, so check that out.
Ooh, I wonder if Athletic Brewing Company is going to be there.
You might have to check it out.
Yeah.
You might have to check it out.
Yeah.
People's Tiny House Festival, July 1st and 2nd in Loveland, Colorado at the Ranch Events Complex. 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Check it out. Tickets are $10. You can get in with discounted fees if you're prior military or current military or seniors. Kids get in free, 12 and under.
You going to do it next year too?
I have to figure that out. That's the big thing.
We'll figure it out.
Every year's a question mark after this because I want to make sure that I'm prioritizing at
and
the end
aligned
of the
with what
festival.
you were said. Speaking of what the whole episode's about,
Yeah, alignment's big for me. I'm very proud of what I've created, but I'm also proud that I can walk away at any moment, and that's pretty cool to say. And that I have, another thing that I'm really pushing for with Recon.
Yeah.
But there's also other things I want to do.
Maybe not doing the festival will allow you to hit those goals that you were talking
100%.
about with Recon.
No, they will. They will because there's things, and it's kind of funny. I realize like what happens with the business every year, say around like September and October, and like that's like I'm not focused at all on the festival and like what comes out of that, the innovation, the focus, growth.
Yeah,
all that happens. So I was like, man, imagine like a year of this or 2 years of this complete focus on something. I can make it something special, but I want to be careful where I take it to. I've bounced ideas behind closed doors with Andrew, like where I want to take it. I'm not sure yet, and that's kind of part of the fun with it. And so stay tuned with that, and I'll let you know, in due time.
Yes. Well, awesome. Well, this has been the COS Business Podcast, and don't forget to like the button.